This is taken from This is taken from my blog Pilgrim Vicar at wordpress.com. These are just a few reflections which I had a couple of weeks ago, and they pick up on the issues to do with the coronavirus, how we're responding to it, and how we are responding as a church to it as well. My son, my eldest son Gethin, fell ill with a dry cough, and then he was duly banished to his room for a week. Tough gig, because that was when he celebrated his 13th birthday, poor lad. Now, we weren't just being mean. My 89-year-old dad also lives with us, and therefore he's pretty vulnerable to COVID-19. Of course, he's been banished to his room as well. The rest of us settled into a 40-day lockdown as per Public Health England guidelines. Now, a family home is challenging enough at the best of times, but when you're all locked in together, that's really, really interesting and challenging. But families, well, we find a way to make things to work, even in these times. So Gethin recovered. It took about a week to recover. I then caught his cough, and then that reset the clock, and so we had another 14-day lockdown. And the cough, well, just settled in as a new member of the family. In the meantime, in my job, I recognize how church has completely changed. I'm barred from the church building. I'm unable to leave home, and I'm ministering to a dispersed church community. This brings so many different challenges and opportunities. So I've been doing what most of my colleagues seem to be doing, and that's building a more connecting church community. That means garnering all those missing phone numbers and email addresses. I'm amazed at the number of email addresses that I've found. It's about creating a better network of pastoral care, finding out who needs help. So we're phoning, video messaging, listening. Set up a church WhatsApp group so that we can share with each other. And that's been a wonderful revelation as to what people are actually sharing. Then in the wider parish, I have Zoom meetings with my colleagues, and again, sharing virtually. In so many ways, we are addressing our isolation and separateness as best we can. And then there's prayer. Especially, there's prayer. I'm reimagining ministry. I'm learning new things. I now live stream church services, and every week there is a new challenge with the live streaming as we expand our capacity. So much has changed in the last 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. Mind you, I have to say, it would not have been possible without hours of help and technical support. So thank you very much, Brian, for all you do. Nor without Rosemary, who's another member of our congregation, saying why a streamed service was helpful to her. What she said was, it's really good to be able to shape the week with a familiar pattern of worship at a familiar time, when so many of the usual boundary markers have been removed. So amongst the service that we've done, and I was learning most of this in Holy Week, we had our 2-hour Way of the Cross service on Good Friday, which we then streamed through YouTube. That was a huge challenge. And I think if you look on this website, say on YouTube, then you can see it. Mind you, I would advise you to skip the opening hymn. The opening hymn is simply dreadful because one of the technical challenges is the time delay. I couldn't hear the music, and when I did, I couldn't see the words. And when I did, I found I was singing at the wrong pitch anyway. So don't bother listening to it, just skip that bit. And part of a church community where normally we gather around the Eucharist, Holy Communion, the bread and the wine. But I'm not live streaming the Eucharist from the vicarage because I'm not convinced that I can. Or I could do it technically, I can show what's going on, but I'm not convinced that I personally am able to share the Eucharist when it's live streamed. My understanding is that we become the body of Christ when the bread and wine is blessed and shared. And so when there's a screen between us, then I find that's just not possible. And it feels faintly medieval to me to see a priest celebrating the Holy Mysteries and being unable to participate beyond watching. I think that's what we had a Reformation for 400 years ago. But others have a different theological understanding of this. They see something different taking place here, and that's great. For them, I thank God for what they're doing. I thank God. Each of us do what we are called to do, and we do it in the way that we do it. There are other opportunities to make connections, different kinds of connecting. One of the joys that I found of ringing people is when I use Messenger video or WhatsApp video. And I'm so reminded of being a teenager watching Blake 7. That's the BBC low-budget 1970s sci-fi series. Just fabulous. Because they came up with exactly the same idea all those years ago. When I'm video calling, I find it really helpful to be able to read the other person's reactions. Then there are the memes that people send to us. Even memes open up connections and possibilities. After I shared one with several people, and I simply laughed out loud when it popped up on my phone, I was really struck by the different messages that followed. Some of them opened up questions of grief, of loss, and even a postponed marriage. And a wedding blessing may result from that shared meme. Life continues within its new parameters. To be human is to communicate after all. How and what we communicate shapes our world and our imagination of what is possible. Now, of course, lots of other people realized this years ago, and I'm only just waking up to something of this for my life and my ministry. But I think that's true for many people within the church in my position. The story of COVID-19 connects us on so many different levels. It's personal. What's happening in my own body, my personal space, my head. It's communal, it's social, it's political. There is a sacrifice and ministry of the National Health Service. Then there's Boris Johnson falling ill, going into intensive care, nearly dying, and recovering and coming out and going back to work again. Then there's the Queen addressing her people. It's about the world that we share, one huge web of interconnectedness with the many, many, many other people of our planet. And shot through it all for me is an ongoing story of faith, what it means to be human. So I place our unfolding story of the recent weeks and months alongside that older story that we find in the Bible, the story of Jesus. I look at these two stories, the story of the world responding to the crisis of COVID-19 and the story of the crisis of Jesus' last days. I was writing this during Holy Week. There are new connections to be made, but they need to be made slowly, with a great deal of patient and attentive listening, I think. For the kind of wisdom that will emerge will not be rushed. It cannot be rushed, because first of all, it must be lived. And that is always a challenge, even at the best of times. So that's what I wrote in my blog a couple of weeks ago. At pilgrimvicar@wordpress.com. I aim to be writing this blog probably about a week to 2 weeks. So I'm fairly regular. May I encourage you to go and look it up? See what you think. There are lots of articles going back probably about 7 years. You may find there are things that you like. You may find things you agree with. You it make you want to chuck the computer against the wall and say, no, that's so wrong. That's what a blog is all about. Me sharing some of my thoughts as I'm here today. Can I also encourage you to go and look at some of our live stream services recorded here on the YouTube channel. See if they help you in your journey through life about what it means to be a human being. See if it can help you if you're not so connected with church, then at least to connect with God. God bless you. May you keep safe. And may we all learn more about ourselves and how we can live well in this world together.